We talk a little bit about gear, author gear. What do you need? What don't you need? And we're going to see if the new Beast Mode computer actually does what it's supposed to do. So let's get on with it.
Just last week you called me. The way you're talking is driving me.
And while we're waiting for the computer to finish updating, I had some questions come in about other gear that we're using to make these videos. So I'll show you a few things. So this is my old camera. This is a Canon 70D. It's pretty good, but it's kind of old. So only does 1080p, doesn't do 4K. So the one I'm filming on now, 4K camera, very nice. Got some filters on there as well to make the picture look nice. It's a Panasonic Lumix GH5S with a Voigtlander 17.5, I think, millimeter lens. This is the other lens I have for this camera, and this is the zoom lens. So if I'm out and about, this one has autofocus. This one I'm on now does not. So I have to basically manually set the focus, which is why I had to buy a monitor. So that I can actually see when I was in focus. And then you'll have seen in some of the videos on here, some of it's shot on iPhone as well, which is pretty easy. All right, so I've just filmed that sequence there. You didn't see the camera. This is the GH5 with some lens filters. You can twist these around if things get too bright or too dark. That's the monitor, so I can see if I'm in focus. And this is my super high-tech microphone, which is kind of just mounted to nothing and dangling by a cable. But yeah, the computer has now finished. So I want to show you, this is the 5-year-old iMac. I want to show you what I mean. You'll see the video comes out of the camera with basically no color on it. And this is called log mode. And this basically means that I have more control over what the finished image looks like versus kind of this image off the iPhone, which I can't really change all that much. So what I'll do then generally is I will then play with this. So now I have to apply the color correction. So I have several that I've made earlier, which I have made myself from various different sources, and I will apply these. So kind of this one is one I go with quite a lot. So if I apply this one to the look, you'll see it changes. Boom. So that's the color profile applied, and then I might fiddle with it a little bit more. So I go, right, well, it's a little bit too dark. So let's pump the highlights up, which is really jerky. So I can pump those up. I can bring the shadows down, and I can get rid of that lens flare. There it is. If I try to now play that back in here, it's very, very jerky. And this is something I can probably live with, except now, until it's finished rendering, the computer's just not going to let me do pretty much anything else. So we're going to take everything on this computer and we're going to transfer it over to this computer. Some weird plastic on this. So this is the chaos we've got in here at the moment. So I've got the camera up for filming. I've got today's email being written on the old computer, which I had to update to get it to work, just so I could transfer all my files. I've got the video that I'm shooting today. I'm editing as I go, trying to save time. That's going on the MacBook laptop, which is a bit faster than this one. Still a bit jerky though. And then we've got the new computer, which is also being updated, which is going to take forever. So yeah, mess everywhere. But I'm still getting a lot of stuff done, so the more screens, the better. Look at that. I may have to tidy the desktop just a little. So this thing's saying 10 more hours to go. So in the meantime, I want to talk about author gear in general, and you don't need all of this stuff that I've shown you so far. I mean, the fancy cameras and the monitors and the fast beast computers, which I will show you as soon as it's ready. You just need something to write on that can then format your words into an ebook. And as we saw in a previous video on software, there is one piece of software that can do all of that. And it's only like $40. And as long as you've got some kind of computer, a budget laptop will be absolutely fine, then you are absolutely set. And sometimes you don't even need that. So case in point, Mrs. S and I went to a spa a couple of days ago. They didn't allow laptops anywhere in the public areas. So to get some work done, working on the new book, I had to be a little bit creative. So let's watch that and you'll see what I mean.
So Mrs. S and I have come to this amazing hotel for 2 whole nights without the kids, which is awesome because this almost never happened. But I'm not allowed to bring my nice camera because everyone tends to just wear their dressing gowns walking around the place, and if I'm carrying a giant camera, that's probably going to put people off. So I've just got the iPhone, which is okay. Over the next couple of days, Mrs. S and I are going to be chilling out and trying to get some relaxation time in. Right, so I've put a dressing gown on, which is what you're supposed to wear when you walk around these places. And my challenge for the next 2 days is to see if I can get any writing done. So I brought the laptop, but big notices everywhere saying no laptops allowed in public areas. So the challenge for this next couple of days is to try and get some writing done without using the laptop, or at least without getting caught. So wish me luck. Mildly cold blanket comes out. I'm still in flip-flops. These are really good crackers. Okay, so I failed miserably at getting the laptop into any of the public areas, and it was very hard to get the phone out. Lots of people frowning at me. So I was able to get some planning done, which is the main thing. So we're working on book 4 of the new series, Sci-Fi series. Have no idea where it's going to go, except for this premise that I've got in my head that I need to work some of the characters into. And this is kind of the goal for this trip, is not necessarily writing out a bunch of words, but nailing the story. Because when you've got the story down, the premise in your head, what all the characters are going to do, gets a lot easier to expand that into a plan and an outline, which you can then write and get your scenes list and expand all that out. Now look, it's a grass sofa. I'm not sure I want to sit on that though. Right, it's kind of windy, but I found somewhere where there's no people, so I can get some stuff done. Can't really bring laptops out, which is proving to be a bit of a pain, but I can think about stuff, which is useful. So, as I said, we're doing book 4, and in this book, it's time to sort of branch out the story. So, books 1 to 3 is like a self-contained story in itself, but I want the series to expand far beyond just 3 books, aiming for sort of 12 to 15 books in this series, so that I can, spend some money on advertising and actually hopefully make it back. So 12 to 15 books is the goal. So book 4 needs to expand the story and give me some opportunities to branch out a little bit. And that definitely leads to problems because the characters that you had in books 1, 2 and 3, they have to have kind of enough interesting stuff going on to be able to branch that out beyond just a few books. So this is where a lot of the big series, big ones, you think Jack Reacher, like 25 books in there, they're all sort of episodic, so you can pick them up and read them in kind of any order, and they're all sort of episode of the week, bad guy of the week kind of stories, and that's really easy to stretch out because you just write a new story for each book. But if you want to encourage people to read through a series, much easier to do that if there's an ongoing story arc throughout that series that doesn't get resolved at the end of every book. So Again, the Jack Reacher example, recently there have been more books that kind of tie together, so sort of 2 or 3 books that maybe tie into each other, but I'm thinking about like 12 books, 15 books. How do I tie all these together with an ongoing narrative? And that's the goal, and that's where the challenge comes in, because then you not only have to have an awesome story for each book, but you have to have this awesome story arc over the whole series. And one tip to deal with that is to sort of do it in trilogies. So each trilogy is a story arc that kind of begins and ends over the course of 3 books. And then you can introduce new sorts of trilogy story arcs throughout the longer series, and then tie into sort of an overall theme across the entire series. So if that sounds complicated, it's because it is. And this is where book 4 is particularly difficult, because it's the first time that I have to branch it out. So it's very much in the concept phase, which is helpful because I can just do it all in my head and not get shouted at by the security guards.
Two ladies' rooms. I don't know what to do.
Okay, I succumbed to the grass sofa. Who can resist a grass sofa? Good news is, I managed to get book 4 planned out, or at least mapped out as much as I can do while being at the spa. So considering phones are frowned upon and laptops aren't allowed, done pretty well. So it's generally good news. Book 4 now planned out, and as I mentioned earlier, having it mapped out, plotted out, scene list done, means that I can stick it all into Scrivener, arrange it the right way, and know exactly what I'm writing when I sit down. So that was the goal. So I didn't really come here to write. I came here to sit in wicker chairs, apparently. But now when I come home, I can start fleshing it out into scenes and getting them in those 7 different sections. So for more on that, check the links underneath this video. I'll talk you through how to take an idea, turn it into a book. Time to go home.
So the computer took nearly 24 hours to get set up and bring all those files across. Super fun. But this kind of gets back to my point, is if you don't need the tech, then you're doing yourself a favor by not getting it. So as an author, if your main focus is getting ideas out of your head and into some kind of book format, then you can get by with a cheap budget used old laptop and a piece of software. You know, Scrivener is one we've recommended before because we've seen it just basically does everything you need, and it's about $40. So it's a no-brainer. One of the great things about being an author and focusing on books is you don't need that big team and you don't need all that technology and investment behind you, which is awesome. So as you saw from the previous segment, I was able to go away for a couple of days, get some planning and plotting done without needing to have all this equipment with me, and really just having ideas and a phone which I could take notes on was enough. And that's enough to then go home and start writing and knowing exactly what I'm going to put down on the page. And I had a few questions come through about that process from going from an idea to first draft and then to published draft, and getting it all onto the ebook stores, getting it uploaded, published, getting paperbacks sorted out. Had a few of those questions come through. So in the next video, we're going to look at that in more detail and see how we go from ideas and how we get ideas and how we can turn those into a compelling narrative that can then eventually become a book. So if you want to get that video, make sure you click the subscribe button underneath this video, click the notification bell. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for topics, just drop them in the comments box underneath as well. So make sure you get subscribed, you get all the videos, and I'll see you again very, very soon.
Just last week you